Hello, everyone. Today, I would like to continue where we left off the last time when we spoke about the SS Mandy that was sunk within the English Channel. The person I spoke about then was my grandfather. His name was Absalom Mbulawa Sikakane. He was born in June 1887. He lived in number 5, First Avenue, Mvuzane, Claremont Township in Durban. And he was a priest by profession. And he conducted services in numerous Lutheran churches around the country. Amongst his other passions was opening up ANC rallies with a prayer and closing those occasions with a prayer. He also conducted weddings in rural areas. And when they came for him, it was in a wee hour of a morning. We just had banging on the doors and on windows. Me and my brother were sleeping on a concrete floor, a straw mat, then a blanket, then us above the blanket and another blanket covering us. Then we used to use elbows as pillows. So when they came for him, our grandmother rushed to where we were sleeping, having books and leaflets, woke us up, hiding these books and leaflets underneath us, and giving us an instruction that we should not wake up whatever happens when they come in. And when they were opened, the doors were opened, the police walked in. Mainly it were white males. The black men constables were left outside to guard around the house. Their language was vulgar, very rough, not befitting speaking to a priest like that. They conducted searches in a rough way, ransacking, not leaving a stone unturned everywhere in the house. I do think they did find some things because some books and leaflets they left and took my grandfather with them, handcuffed. This was big shock to us as children. A whole priest, a man of God, being arrested at a time when you never knew that a man of God can do no wrong, any wrong. But they took him with him. And when the daylight broke, we got to know that there were numerous raids in the region. People like Albert Lutoli, who was then the president of the ANC, had also been taken. There were a few helicopters that were just hovering around the whole area, and everybody was stunned. Families were outside just looking as to all the happenings and talking, about the developments that took place in the night. And names were coming up of these residences that were raided. Anyway, that was my first experience to realize that there was something wrong in my country. I had learned a lot from my grandfather. I mean, I remember occasions when I used to go with him attending these weddings. That is where I got to appreciate our tribal traditional cultures in terms of weddings, from paying up dowry if you're going to be getting married, seeing all the processes that followed in terms of traditional dancing of the different clans, the singing, the music, the just traditional attire, which in a way helped me a great deal having that knowledge, because even when I was in exile, that is what, in some ways, later on you will learn. Having that sort of background can save your life. We had an invasion of locusts at some point. Outside, the communities will be out with wet rugs, wet sacks, blowing them out of the corn on the maize cobs, and then stamping on them to kill them. Larks will be around also, helping out in destroying those locusts. I got to know at the time of fireflies, beautiful, spectacular creatures that come normally on rainy seasons. And when they set off from the ground, just below their belly, there'd be a light glowing. And as children, we used to think that they carried torches. Whereas when my grandfather explained, that is how they used to attract the male, and those that were lit were females, attracting their males, and at the same time, erroneously attracting their what other animals that prey on them. My grandfather used to say they bred on swamps, they bred on moist areas, and used to say if we had a pond or we built a pond in some area of the yard, we'd have that spectacle every year. But he would not dare do that because there would be loads of mosquitoes coupled with malaria. I learned from him from the golf course nearby, just next to his property. I used to see black men going in there and being caddies. At some point, in closer to my teenage years, I had a couple of times experience of carrying those golf bags for the white men who were playing. But even though I liked the sport, which I still love, but twice was enough for me to be doing that caddying. It was just not something I could do. Being spoken, the way those people used to be speaking to us, the way they used to treat us, I could just not tolerate that. But then with my grandfather, other things I learned was being out there selling things like vegetables and fruit from his own plantation, communicating with the community around there was quite pleasurable, because then you got to know, and people already knew, it's the Skakane family, he's from priest so and so, etc. And then in the week, on the Thursdays, he used to have women from the Lutheran church who used to come, and the service would be conducted in the late afternoon. But like an hour or so before that, he'd have sat with me and my brother, testing us on what we'd learned the previous week in terms of some verses in the Bible, what we'd learned in terms of church hymns, things like the Ten Commandments, etc. Once a month, he'd patch us up some big rocks that were just outside the kitchen, and your legs will be dangling, not easily being able to touch the ground. You'd only touch the ground by jumping off those rocks. He'd sit there next to us, reminding us that, yeah, we've had lots of sugar cane, we've had lots of guavas in that month, and therefore we needed to be cleansed. My grandmother would come with a mug for each of us, full of castor oil, or the smell, a pungent smell of that substance, not easy to swallow. To do that, to swallow it, you had to like use your fingers and shut off your nostrils so you could not smell it. And then shove it right at the end of your, towards the end of your tongue for it to just gulp down your throat, your throat. And then also, gulping it so fast that the smell as it comes out, it's not something you can tolerate. And then my granddad would be sitting there with his whip, what we used to call isbako, and just waiting for you to puke. If you did, you'd get a lashing from his whip. And I think I do have a photo of that somewhere where you'd see how it looked like. It was one of those that were used to rear cattle, as you drive them about in the fields. So once a month we used to have this castor oil, and it wouldn't take you an hour. You'd be then running to the pit toilet. Even those toilets, were made out of, the toilets were made up, he used to make his own. And then when it's full, then in another area in the yard would be selected. You'd help him dig as he's building that. And when you were running about with the castor oil running you up, having this diarrhea, it wasn't, toilet paper was in there at the time. You used to just use rough paper. It could be brown paper, any available rough paper, That is how we used to cleanse ourselves. So from him, I learned a lot. But at the same time, when he got arrested, yes, that left a huge gap, in me. It was not something you could forget. And that also helped to mold my future as to which direction I'd be taking in the near future. So I'm not sure whether there's anything I might have left. I do think I did leave something actually. His house was the only house just nearby, and then the neighbors were a bit further on. And then there'd be a huge pieces of the felt, and we as boys we used to play around there with the others from the area. And what makes me what reminds me of this is the fact that at some point, even during that period of time, I had to learn about snakes, because as we're playing in these fields, you could jump or be running and realize that you've just gone over a snake. So from that experience is when you got home and you explain what happened. My grandfather used to be able to tell you, I mean, from your description, what snake it was. So from the black mambas to the green mamba to pythons, loads of the kind of snakes I grew up knowing existed, it helped to have also that knowledge because it wasn't too long thereafter. At some point in my life, yes, I had to collide with such situations that where snakes were involved. I will end today's talk around this. Hopefully, uh, I can thank you and also give you a little reminder that if you like what you've heard or what you've listened to, or what you'd read on my passages, do subscribe and like and share. Thank you very much. Thanks.